Hi, this is Bill Guesswich, and today's an exciting day. As part of Blazor Project Structure Part 3, we're going to do the following. First, we're going to create a Blazor WebAssembly project that uses the client service that we've created that ultimately uses the API that we wrote as part of the server. Now I do have to note WebAssembly is still in preview, so this could change, but the essence of what we're doing should stay the same. The other part we're going to do is update the server to remove all of the component pieces and only keep the API. So we're basically separating the client from the server in this video. So let's get started. Back in Visual Studio, let's add in a WebAssembly project and call the client service, which calls the API. So first thing we want to do, rather than create a whole separate project and type in the startup, let's add in a template. So we'll right click on the solution, add a new project, and we'll make it a Blazor app. Click on next. We'll call this Blazor app from scratch.wasm. We'll select Blazor WebAssembly app. We will not select the ASP. Please make sure that that's not selected. And we will go ahead and create. And now that adds in a Blazor app from scratch, Wasm. Now there are actually only a few things that we need to do. So first, let's clean up the Wasm project. I don't want the counter. I don't want the fetch data. And so since we got rid of those, let's go into Nav menu and let's get rid of those. Actually, I'm going to leave one around because I'm going to modify that in a second. Okay. And those are the things I wanted to just clean up here. So now let's move the person component down. Okay. So we will take person.razor and drag it into the pages folder. And along with that comes the person razor CS. So let's open that up. And then let's change the reference here to Blazor app from scratch.wasm.pages. Okay. And then we're getting these because we don't have references here. So let's go ahead and add the references. We need a client BL and a DTO reference. Those will resolve. We no longer need the server service, so we'll get rid of that. And now everything here resolves correctly. Let's go take a look at the person razor. Now this isn't resolving because of the field label, so let's go ahead and pull that down, the components down from here. Let's pull that into Wasm, and in field label everything's good here. The only thing we have to add here is a using for Blazor app from scratch.wasm.components. And in person, that should now resolve. Let me just save it. And it resolves. Okay. So now we have moved the components from the server side to the client side. Now, a couple of things that we need to do in order to make sure that everything gets resolved correctly is if we go back up to the server, we don't need anymore the pages, so we can delete that. We don't need shared. We can delete that. We don't need imports. We can delete that. And we can delete app.razor. And in the components, we can delete that as well. I'm going to leave www.root there for a little bit, and I'll explain why in the upcoming video. Now all of that now takes all of the Razor components, and now we've got it all down here. We have an app Razor, we already had an imports, that's why I created a new WebAssembly, and we've got all of this information in here, so I think we're pretty good. The one thing we need to do is we need to update the startup class now to tell .NET Core to start up from the Wasm project and not from its project. There is no more front-end HTML up here in the Blazor app from scratch. So in order to do that, what we need to do here is a couple of things. First, we no longer need this reference to the client service. We no longer need server-side Blazor, and we no longer need Razor pages. We do need the person service, but that's the only service we need there, and we need the controllers for the API. So since we've done that, let's just clean up our using. Let's get rid of these two. We don't need those. And down here, what we need to add is something that says app.use client side Blazor files, and those are in wasm.startup. Now when we do that, notice we get the red squiggly. We right click, and it doesn't really help us much. And since we are in using WebAssembly, we don't get a lot of help here. But what you need to do is we need to add a NuGet package. And when you browse, make sure you have include pre-release in here. And that's because we are going to be using a preview version of a NuGet package. And again, I'll just mention WebAssembly's in preview, so this all could change. But we want to look for Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Blazor.Server. And when you look for that, you find this, make sure it's got 3.1, preview 4, or something later than that. And then you want to go ahead and install that. Click on OK. Click on Accept. And when that gets installed, you see that the use client-side Blazor files gets resolved. Now this Wasm doesn't get resolved. And why doesn't Wasm get resolved? Again, it doesn't get resolved because we need to add a reference. Because we are using Wasm within a .NET Core application, we have to add a reference to that so that we can do this last piece. So we add the reference and it resolves. Okay, so that's the first thing we need to do. The next thing we need to do is update the endpoints. So here we don't need Blazor Hub and we don't need fallback to page, but what we do need is an endpoint dot map fallback to client-side Blazor, and we'll look into the wasm.startup again, and there we are going to pull in the index.html. Now if we go down here and we look into www.root, there's an index.html, and this is what gets everything kicked off in our application. Okay, before I run it, one additional thing. Let's go back to the Wasm and let's go into the menu, and we will update this for person, and update this for person. And what we want to do is we want to just make sure that it is perfect. One last thing, we need to go into the startup now for the Wasm, and we need to define the client level service here. So we do that with services.add scoped, and we'll put iPerson client service, and that's not going to resolve. So what we want to do is we want to right click and make sure that it resolves, and then we will add in the implementation, the person client service, and we will do that, and then we should be good. And there you have it. We click on the person. We've got Fred Flintstone. Go down to Betty Rubble. It refreshes. And now we are actually in a Wasm. We're using the Wasm version because there are no Razor components up in the server anymore. And you notice here it says Blazor app from scratch Wasm. In the next video, we'll separate out the Wasm project into its own standalone solution. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and as always, please don't hesitate to contact me with any questions or comments. And as always, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.